VHS Files contains spoilers, adult content, and harsh language. Listener discretion is advised.
It's showtime. It's showtime.
Welcome to the VHS Files Podcast with Jenny Lou,
So what do you want to do tonight?
Jason,
What about pizza and movie night?
Eric,
I want to rent a movie.
and Josh.
I want to go to a good video store so I can get a good movie.
And this is the movie of the week.
Get this pizza movie night started.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas.
Welcome to episode 16 of the VHS Files
Sweet
Podcast.
16.
And it is Christmas. You're getting this episode on Christmas Day. So Merry Christmas from our house to yours.
Merry Christmas.
We
A
would
lot of people don't know that we all live together on this podcast.
Well, three of us do. Speaking of which, our buddy Jason, who's normally on the show with us, he was out on the last episode, unfortunately, because he was falling ill, and we got word that he did indeed test positive for COVID-19. And we want to just say that we are thinking about him. I know he's got a lot going on right now, and this is probably the closest it's affected us at this point, maybe. We're putting good vibes out there for him to get better. And everybody, if you would, go on our social media and just give some love to Jason so he can get better and get back on the show with us.
Yeah,
I hope
feel better soon,
he's
buddy.
feeling much better by the time this airs.
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
No fun to be sick on Christmas.
No fun to be sick on Christmas and to be dealing with what we've been dealing with for almost the entirety of this year. So, again, just people, everybody, please be aware and be thoughtful of all of this. Wear your mask when you go out. Make sure you're taking proper precautions and washing your hands. We don't like to see any of our loved ones or friends, in the position Jason's in right now. So we are hoping he gets through this and gets better and gets back on the show and we can keep having a good time. Not to start the episode on a downer, but we're going to go ahead and kick it into the movie of the week.
The movie of the week.
And this week we are talking about Home Alone. Big movie from my childhood. We're actually breaking into a new decade on the show with this one as well. We are hitting 1990.
That's right.
Wow.
We're out of the 80s. We have finally hit a 90s movie.
Pretty exciting.
Yeah. So, and it's weird
Moving
because
on up.
It feels like an 80s movie. Really. I mean, to me it does anyway.
Well, it's 1990, so it almost is an 80s movie.
Right.
Yeah.
But technically.
Filmed in the 80s.
Yep. Oh, you're right. There you go.
Probably. Started.
So Home Alone was directed by Chris Columbus, and this was his third film, I think, third or fourth film. He had come out of the gate with one of Jenny's favorite movies, Adventures in Babysitting.
Yes.
And a movie called Heartbreak Hotel. And after Home Alone, he'd go on to do Only the Lonely, Mrs. Doubtfire, Stepmom, which is actually a really good movie, in my opinion. Some people don't have the same opinion. He did a couple of the Harry Potter movies, I think the first and the second. And I Love You, Beth Cooper, which is a more recent film before he passed away. Or Christopher, I'm thinking getting him mixed up with John Hughes, I think.
Wow.
I think
you just
Christopher
killed
Columbus
someone.
is still So when you talk Christopher Columbus, you can't help but think of John Hughes, which he wrote and produced Home Alone. So it's easy to get those mixed up, I think. So this was released November 16th, 1990, and had a budget of $18 million. And just take a guess at how much this movie brought in.
Oh, God.
Off a budget of $18 million, how much do you think it made?
300 million something.
You're close, but you're right in the middle somewhere.
11 bajillion.
$477 million.
Wow.
Wow.
In. So to say that this is a hit is an understatement. This thing blew up. Came out amongst the likes of Jacob's Ladder, Child's Play Part 2, Rocky V, and the sequel to one of the biggest movies of the 80s, Three Men and a Little Lady.
Oh.
Which I don't think that one quite lived up to the first one either.
No.
So, I mean, this came
Massive disappointment.
Yeah, this one came out amongst the mass of really like a bunch of sequels. So, again, around the holiday time. So it was prime for being a a holiday movie.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing.
So now that we've broken into the 90s, Eric, take us back in time and tell us what was cool in 1990.
We're sending you back in time.
Whoa, this is heavy.
Well, Josh, the Space Shuttle Discovery places the revolutionary Hubble Space Telescope in orbit. It's really interesting stuff. Do you guys know how to use a telescope?
No.
No.
You should really look into it. Boom. Okay. Also, Denzel Washington wins Best Supporting Actor for Glory. The first documented crash between two cars fitted with airbags occurred, and both drivers walked away with minor injuries. So that was cool. You guys ever been in a car accident where your airbag went off?
No.
No.
Oh, I have. It's
No,
intense.
the only car accident I've been in, well, I've been in two. First one was a car that I don't think was outfitted with airbags. It was too old. And then the other, I rear-ended somebody, and then somebody rear-ended me, but no airbags deployed.
All right. And then McDonald's used to cook their fries in beef fat tallow until 1990 when they switched to vegetable oil. So it's kind of interesting.
Good for
And finally, the biggest show on television in 1990. What is it? Hit it, Josh. Oh, you know what that is.
I
That puts you in the mood right there.
I listen to this score all the time. I love this and then the real jazzy stuff in the show.
Yep.
But yeah, this is one of my favorite TV show themes. And just, everybody, you can hear this, but we're also watching the intro to Twin Peaks, which is so riveting to me, of just a blade being sharpened. But I love it.
Oh man, that intro sets the mood like immediately.
Yeah,
It's
big
so
time. I think Twin Peaks is really the reason I went down the rabbit hole with David Lynch and kind of fell in love with Lynch after that, because I used to not really care for his movies at all. And then something about how bizarre they are roped me in my older age. But we won't get on the David Lynch talk. That comes later in the show.
Yeah.
But all right, well, let's get started talking about Home Alone. Childhood memories. Anybody see this in the theater?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
All right.
So for it would have been 9th birthday, my parents took me and a bunch of my friends to see Home Alone because my birthday is right before Christmas. So it was like the movie everybody wanted to see, and we all went, and it was the best time. Like a packed theater, totally losing it, just amazing. Yeah, I think around this time is when I started going to the movies more regularly as a child. So like the 90s were really where I started seeing movies in the theater. And this is one of my first big memories.
Right. You're 7 or 8 at this point, right?
I was 9.
Okay. So you're just kind of getting to the age where you can go to the theater and not have to like leave and go to the bathroom every 30 minutes like a little kid does. Yeah, I think I probably saw this in the theater. I don't have a ton of memories of my childhood, like where you just were remembering in detail like what happened. Like that's all been washed away over the years, I guess. But I'm sure I saw this in the theater, and yeah, I mean, Christmas classic. What a phenomenon, and Macaulay Culkin just taking the world by storm.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember all of that. So,
well,
yeah.
This was the first thing I'd seen him in, but I had never seen Only the Lonely, which he's in that with John Candy a lot more briefly than this movie.
He's in Uncle Buck too. Was that?
Or no, I'm thinking of Uncle Buck. I said Only the Lonely because I brought it up in the movies from that year. But yeah, Uncle Buck is what I'm talking about. And my cousin loved Uncle Buck. But for some reason, Uncle Buck was one that I didn't really see as a kid. I saw it a little later. And Macaulay Culkin's good in that. He's fantastic in this.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say whatever and how his career went and what happened after these movies and how it kind of affected him going on, but there's no denying he's amazing in these movies. This
yeah,
one
there's
and
a
the second
reason he became so huge. I mean,
Yeah.
What a funny little guy.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about specific scenes where he really kills it, in my opinion. But I did not see this one in the theater. I do remember on or around Thanksgiving, probably the year after it came out, we rented it on video. And this is my stepdad is not really known for being all that into watching movies and whatnot. We won't go down that path and start talking about that stuff. But watching a movie with my stepdad was a feat. And there are two movies in particular that I have fond memories of watching with him, watching along and actually enjoying the movie we were watching. And Home Alone's one of them, the other being E.T. And we'll talk about that when we get to E.T. But this movie, because we were all home, it was a holiday. It was like, let's all sit down and watch a movie. And I vividly remember him and we called him Uncle Ross, but he was really just a friend of my dad's. But he was there and we were watching this movie, and I was probably laughing more at them laughing at this movie than I was actually laughing at what was going on, because they were busting their guts. Like my stepdad was in tears. Ross was in tears. My mom and me were just rolling because we were watching them laugh their asses off. So even though I didn't see this in the theater, I can only imagine what a theater experience would have been like for this movie.
Absolutely. And I think slapstick is such a universal comedy that no matter what your sense of humor is, really good slapstick is funny. Watching these two guys, just get demolished is hysterical. It's so funny.
And even I think my opinion is, in this movie, it doesn't seem as cartoony. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't label this as slapstick comedy. I think the stuff at the end is very slapstick, but it doesn't fall into a movie like Ace Ventura or anything like that, where it's just constantly on. This one is the build up and then the crescendo to them breaking in the house at the end, and then it just goes buck wild.
Yeah.
Now there are genuinely funny comedy moments from beginning to end in this, but I think the slapstick stuff really, I don't think there's enough of it in there to label it a slapstick comedy, but I could understand why you would say that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you don't really get all the slapstick until that night where they come, and then it just goes crazy. But yeah, it's a lot more than that, obviously.
Right.
Well, I think the score in part kind of lends to that whole slapstick
at the end,
vibe.
yeah.
Well, and also the beginning, like there's, an urgency when they're running through the airport, and like there's all these notes that the score hits throughout that.
It's
but
interesting.
I do agree
because,
with you.
Yeah. Talking about setting the mood, I love the score in the beginning of the film where it's like that little
it starts
little
with a Christmas thing and then turns into
nice.
Yeah, like it starts as a Christmas song and then kind of fades into the score that we'll have through the movie. Yeah, I really like that too. And that kind of lends to what we've been talking about the Christmas movies all season, is like, if your movie starts with a Christmas song, there you go. I mean, it's now this one is absolutely Christmas through and through. I mean, just watching it, you know, it's hitting all those notes. So like, this movie was meant to be a Christmas classic. And
right. I mean, Kevin is learning to appreciate the people around him, his family, stuff like that. I mean, that's like a total Christmas movie theme right there.
Yeah.
Is, seeing the world and appreciating it and, not being selfish, that kind of stuff.
But kicking this movie off, I've always found it kind of weird that all this stuff's going on in this house, yet no one seems to recognize or be concerned that there is a police officer standing in their entryway.
Yeah, no one cares.
No one is even put a thought towards stopping and talking to this guy, which is, I mean, kind of starts the unrealisticness of this movie a little bit, where you really just have to suspend disbelief and just take it for what it is. Because there's no way anybody would just leave a cop standing at your front door.
This is a really nice neighborhood.
Yeah, and like somebody
these
had to have
people,
let him in.
Well, that, or maybe not. He's not a real cop, but they don't see the cops as a threat of any kind. They're in a super nice upscale neighborhood. The cop probably, oh, hey, I got your newspaper by accident, or I saw your like just a nothing. No one cares.
Right.
Plus, a lot of people walking by him are visiting, so it's not even their house.
Yeah.
But
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's setting the tone that this house is chaos, and
Yeah.
it's really hard to keep track of what's going on, basically, and no one's really paying attention.
And we're introduced to Kevin here in Catherine O'Hara, who plays his mom in this, and then you get John Hurd, his dad, two fantastic actors who we will see multiple times throughout all of the movies we're going to be talking about on this show. And I found out, like, you don't really pay a whole lot of attention to what Catherine O'Hara is talking about while she's on the phone, because this is just your introduction into the movie. I found a lot of things are said, or a lot of things are laid out for you that you might have questions for in that phone call she has. You've always grasped that they're, going to France to see his brother or whatever it is. But one thing I always found kind of weird about this movie was the doggy door that plays a part in this movie. And there's no dog in the house. But if you listen to that phone call she's having at the beginning, she says, "We boarded the dog." So the dog's already gone to the kennel and it's not in the house during this time.
Damn, I did not even notice that.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I wonder what kind of dog they have.
And that's what's funny is, like, we get a sequel to this in the same family, same house, but still the dog is gone again. It's like they cleverly figured a way to keep the dog out of the situation.
Yeah.
But what you really kind of notice from the get-go of this movie is Kevin is definitely the youngest and an afterthought, because everybody here is fucking mean to him.
But he's a brat.
Yeah, he's kind of a brat, and he wants everyone to do everything for him, and he doesn't appreciate, especially his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His siblings are pretty mean to him, but
Yeah, I mean,
he makes ornaments with his dad's fishing lures. He doesn't seem to give a shit about what he does and how it affects anybody.
right.
Yeah, I mean, if I had ever pulled some of the stuff that he pulled at that age, I would have been spanked. For sure.
But you already get a sense of how this performance from Macaulay Culkin is going to go from the moment he steps on screen. He's so snide, and he's so quick with the retorts to his mom's stuff, and even the thing with the ornaments and the fish hooks. And he's like, "I can't make ornaments out of the old ones with dry worm guts stuck on them." His delivery of a lot of this stuff seems very natural for a child, and I mean, he plays it off with a lot of suave for a kid, in my opinion. Like, he's very witted.
For a kid that age, he speaks like more like an adult. You know, which is funny.
And that might be because he's around older people all the time. He's the youngest of all these kids, and we see how they treat him. So he's kind of got to harden himself a little bit, and not take shit from people. What always got me was he freaks out about packing his suitcase. And as you go through this movie, you start to find out that Kevin is very willing and able to do a lot of things, but yet the notion of packing his suitcase was just beyond him. That seems a little...
I think he learns to do things for himself. He's used to having most things done for him. I mean, like they said, mom will pack your suitcase. Like, I think at this point he's happy to let other people do things for him. Mm-hmm. And he's probably just saying that because he doesn't feel like doing it. I don't know. Yeah. I get kind of like a little bit of a spoiled brat vibe from him in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I never really felt as though he was that much of a brat. I could see where he was being snooty, but I feel like there's a lot of things pointed at him. Like, I don't understand why he is punished for what happens in the kitchen, and Buzz is, nothing happens to Buzz because he was instigating what was going on.
True.
I think that's, with it.
Sibling rivalry.
A crazy moment, and mom missed the first part, only caught the second part.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about this scene and going through the house and meeting everybody and seeing all this interaction with Kevin and his brothers and sisters and cousins and whatnot is he continues to try and get someone to help him, and nobody wants to help him. When he stands in the middle of the hallway, jumping up and down, I've always loved that he pulls the, when I grow up and get married, I'm living alone.
Yeah. It's great.
He goes to his brother Buzz, which they have some great exchanges. I wouldn't let you sleep in my room if you were growing on my ass. But this is where we end up getting this revelation of Old Man Marley who lives next door, which I've always found fascinating.
And a nod to A Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Marley.
But what gets me now as an adult and not really thinking about it as a kid is I don't know how long they've lived in this house with him as their neighbor. He even says that, he saw them move in on the block. But all this time, they've never seen him next door. And this Christmas just happens to be the Christmas where they decide to pull this story about how he killed his kids and put him in a...
Well, yeah, Kevin hasn't seen him. And then that other kid was like a visiting cousin or something, right? So Buzz has seen him. But...
Well, Kevin, how old is Kevin in this? I think they say he's 11.
No,
he
he's
says
8.
he's 8.
8, okay. Yeah. So, I mean...
Did you watch this movie, Josh?
I'm so bad with details, man. It's like names. And if I don't write it down, I'll never remember it right off the top of my head.
Yeah, old man is salting the sidewalk, and he's like, these goddamn rich kids are staring at me again.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
But I still find, even though, this is the first time Kevin's hearing about Old Man Marley, he's 8 years old. I don't know if he was born there and grew up not knowing that guy was next door. I don't know. Something about him not knowing about Old Man Marley kind of bothered me this time around. Like he's been there how long and he's only now hearing about the neighbor next door.
Buzz is like Littlefinger.
But we get the delivery, the pizza delivery guy pulls up, and I love that him hitting the statue in the driveway becomes this ongoing bit between this throughout this movie and even into the next.
He should not have a license.
Well,
he's driving aggressivly on the snow,
tearing down that residential street.
Well, you know what? You get paid by the hour, not or by the delivery. Shit, you get paid by the delivery, so 30 minutes or it's free. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Have you guys never noticed on the car it says your pizza in 30 minutes or it's free?
That's still dangerous.
It's still dangerous, but it's their way of explaining why he's driving so erratically.
They're putting their delivery guys in a difficult situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make promises that's going to make your delivery guys a menace to the highway.
Right.
I love Fuller and Fuller What's the Bed.
Yeah.
They say Fuller, go easy on the Pepsi. I would always call my kids Fuller when they were drinking too much stuff like near bedtime. I'm like, whoa, Fuller, go easy on the whatever they're drinking.
Well, after the pizza guy comes, we get introduced to Uncle Frank, which he puts his character out right from the get-go. He grabs the pizza and he says, "Oh, it's my brother's house. I'll take care of it."
Yeah, he doesn't want to pay.
But then
he's a cheap son of a bitch.
I've got a clip here, and it's the clip of the scene where everything goes down with the pizza, and we can comment on it as it goes. But there's some funny stuff to be seen and heard here.
Yes, you can say that.
Hey, pizza's here!
There you go. That's $122.50.
Oh, it's my brother's house. He'll take care of it.
Hey, listen,
Frank, remember to use
Hi.
So
hi. Are you Mr. McAllister?
here's where you say,
Mr.
they're rich, they don't
McAllister
worry
who
about
lives
the
here?
police.
Yes.
Like, he
Oh,
just
good,
seems
'cause
like, am
somebody
I
owes me
under arrest or something? Like, he just seems so blasé about it.
Yeah.
Am I under arrest or something?
No. It's Christmas time. There's always a lot of burglaries around the holidays. So we're just checking the neighborhood to see if everyone's taking the proper precautions, that's all.
Oh, yeah, well, we have automatic timers for our lights, locks for our doors. That's about as well as anybody can do these days, right? Did you get some eggnog or something like that?
Come on, Dad. Let's see.
Peter, you fool.
Listen, are you leaving?
So we're
I'm
gonna
gonna play you, Peter.
We're gonna continue this scene, but we're gonna stop here. So you hear Kevin run down the stairs. Pizza! So we're watching this movie for this, making our notes. And as soon as this happens, I look at Janie and I go, "That's you." And
Pizza!
we had to stop the movie, and we had a good laugh about it for a good, probably 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And all she could do was look at me and go, "You're right."
I really love pizza. Like a lot. That's my reaction in my head every time
It's the cheese.
I get pizza. It is.
The cheese.
But the way he comes down the stairs and grabs hold of the thing when he turns, and just the way he's yelling pizza, I mean, absolutely everything about being a kid and being excited about pizza night. I mean, that's where pizza night comes from, in my opinion.
Yeah. Let's get this pizza movie night started.
That's right.
What time do you have to go to bed?
Early. We're leaving the house at 8 a.m. on the button.
I hope you're all drinking milk. I want to get rid of it. Hey, don't you?
I love that too. I hope you're all drinking milk. I wanna get rid of it.
And how it comes back later is good.
Yep.
10 pizzas times $12.
Frank, you've got the money, don't you? Come on.
Traveler's check.
Work at it, Frank. We have cash.
You probably get the kind of traveler's checks that don't work in France.
Did anyone order me plain cheese?
Well, yeah, we did. But if you want any, somebody's gonna have to barf it all up, because it's gone.
So he's just taunting Kevin. Now, I've always been confused. Did they order him a pizza and actually eat all of it, or did they just forget to order him a cheese pizza?
We don't know.
Well,
Buzz could be lying.
here's my analysis of that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that there are a lot of children there who are small, and children usually have, not a very wide ranging palate.
Mm-hmm.
So they like cheese pizza or cheese and pepperoni. Like they're not getting mushrooms and olives, and they just
you know
want
what
the
I say to
basics.
Kevin? Pick it off, son.
Yeah.
Pick it off. You don't like sausage
You're
on your
the
pizza?
worst
Pick
parent,
it off.
Eric. Oh my God.
Well, this is kind of where you guys say he's coming across as a brat. Like, this is where I see that is, yeah, I mean, if you're that concerned with the cheese pizza, then just pull the pepperoni off.
No. If they know that Kevin doesn't like toppings on his pizza, they should put that in consideration when they order.
This is a chaotic time.
This is
They're more concerned
wait,
with packing. They've got people in the house. They got visitors.
This is speaking.
It's not Jenny.
Wait,
it's
wait,
not
wait.
about the pizza.
No.
It's about he pushed
It's
Buzz
about
into the
pizza
milk. He pushed Buzz and spilled the milk. It's not about the pizza.
It is about the pizza because, as usually the pickiest person in the room, I would be really pissed off if nobody ordered me the kind of pizza I liked.
But he's a small boy. He doesn't have the authority to be. He's not paying for the pizza. You know what I
Even
mean?
as a small child, we've already said he seems a little spoiled. They had to have gotten him a cheese pizza.
Well, maybe they did. Maybe Buzz ate the whole damn thing.
Maybe he
just 'cause
did.
He wanted
Maybe
to mess
he did.
with Kevin. Who knows? Who knows?
But I always thought that this was one of the things that stood out to me is after Kevin lashes out, tackles Buzz, makes chaos within dinner and everything. Frank's response to what happens.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
I've always thought that was really out of line.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, if somebody called my kid a little jerk,
I don't care if you're family or not.
I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
You don't say that. But Peter is more or less worthless in this film. I don't know what he does for a living to make all this money and stuff, but he doesn't really do much of anything.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Peter, is that his brother?
Yeah.
His brother-in-law. It's his brother?
It's his brother.
Your brother just called your son a little jerk. What are you going to do about it, Peter? Nothing?
Yeah.
Damn, Peter.
Yeah, he just jumps on the bandwagon with everybody else.
I love when...
Kevin, you're such a disease.
Yeah, it's terrible. I love when Frank gets up and smashes Fuller with the chair into the wall.
Mm-hmm.
That chair
What a weird little thing.
is rubber.
It's so rubber, yeah. Rubber wood chair.
Yeah. The milk is spilled all over the passports and tickets, and they know that it spilled on those items.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh gosh, get them up, There is no way that they would have just thrown that away without looking. Like, they are actively cleaning up important documents they need for the next day. They would be counting them. They would be airing them out.
There's a lot of, inconsistencies on, would this really make sense?
Well, the funny thing about this is even though they go down that road to show you that they throw his ticket away, it still doesn't even warrant it needing to be there. Like, they could still have his ticket. The thing is they count another kid as Kevin when they're loading up in the van.
Yes, but they hand all the tickets to the lady at the gate.
Yeah. Exactly.
And she does a rough count, but like she would have counted them all while they were going down.
She said, you got an extra ticket here. You're missing somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, they did a lot to cover all their bases with trying to break down how you leave your kid alone.
Right.
And not make the parents look awful.
Right.
I mean, the power goes out. It makes them late. You know, the kid magically, you know, the neighbor kid coming over, getting in the count. You know, all that stuff. Like, things line up pretty perfectly where you're like, okay, these parents, you could see how they do that. They don't seem like terrible parents per se. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
I do love when they wake up late.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
so funny. I think
it's much better in this film than it is the second one. I don't want to keep. We're going to compare to the second one a lot because it's very like this one in a lot of ways. But Jenny made the comment that they're in Chicago in the middle of winter, and if the power goes out, it doesn't matter if it's 4 a.m. or whatever. Like, you're going to wake up because it's cold as hell in that house.
That's a very good point. Mm-hmm. Maybe they were wasted. Maybe they just, like, we didn't see it, but the adults just were pounding drinks, doing shots after dinner.
You have to contribute a lot of what puts you in the situations in this movie is because of the chaos of what happens in the beginning and how many people are in this house and everything that happens up to that point.
This house is massive.
Yeah. And the exchange...
You could lose someone in there.
The exchange between he and his mom when she takes him upstairs is one of the best parts of this movie. It's another part where Macaulay Culkin shines because when he's standing on the stairs and they're going back and forth with one another, and she says, you know, I don't want to see you again for the rest of the night. And he goes, I don't want to see you again for the rest of my whole life. And the way he points at her and everything, it's just such a good performance from him.
Well, their relationship is like the emotional core of this movie, you know? And I think a lot of us can relate to getting mad at your parents or mad at somebody you love and saying something you didn't mean, you know, and then, you know, he wakes up and they're gone.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what makes the reunion and everything they go through hit so hard at the end.
Do you think as an 8-year-old, your first thought would have been they went to the airport without me? Or would you have gone down the path of, well, maybe I did make them disappear?
It's cute to imagine that that's what an 8-year-old's first instinct would be. But he does pretty quickly check the garage and see that the cars are there and think that they didn't go to the airport.
At least they show him questioning it at first.
Yeah.
That maybe they left without me. But yeah, I don't think I would think that. I'd probably go to a neighbor, and if I didn't find a neighbor, I'd probably go to a store and say, hey, you know,
right.
As a kid, as an 8-year-old, I think I'd probably not think that it, but she plants that seed. Maybe you wish for it, it'll happen.
Yeah.
You know, she kind of plants that seed in his head,
and they do try to cover that aspect of it because he goes to the garage and he says their cars are still here. They didn't go to the airport.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I think he would have known that they were getting a transport to the airport, or maybe not. He's 8 years old. He probably didn't.
Yeah, he probably wasn't paying attention to those details.
Mom's on the phone making arrangements. He's not paying attention.
One of my favorite parts of all of this, though, is when they get on the plane. They're in first class, and when it shows him and her getting comfortable on the plane, and she says, "I hope we didn't forget anything," and it cuts straight to Kevin opening the door. It is a great jump cut, and him just wandering through the house, and it's silent, and his hair, the way his hair looks in this scene,
it's great.
Is part of what cracks me up about it. But when he realizes that they're gone, and he just starts going buck wild in the house and thinking about all the bad stuff everybody's been saying about him. And his first instinct is to go jump on mom and dad's bed with a bag of popcorn and
your boots on.
It kind of makes me want to jump on a trampoline and try and eat popcorn.
No.
It looks fun.
You would choke.
Well, as a kid, watching him get to just go wild in the house and break every rule, you know, eat ice cream at night, watch the scary movie, you know, shoot the BB gun, get into Buzz's stuff, like, and all that is like a kid's dream, like just to be able to go crazy.
And he is a crack shot. This kid should be a sniper.
He doesn't miss, does he?
He does not miss. And he does it with such confidence, too.
Yep.
It just one after the other, and he does not miss once. One of my favorite parts of all of this is when it cuts to the shot of all the ice cream and marshmallows on the kitchen counter, which is exactly what you would do as a kid. Put every bit of junk in a bowl you could, and he starts watching the movies.
And then leave it there.
And just leave it all sitting out, melting, watching the movies mom and dad wouldn't let you watch. And what he says here is so great. I'm eating junk and watching rubbish. You better come out and stop me.
Yeah. And Angels with Filthy Souls is a classic. It's a classic within a classic. I wish there was a whole movie.
Yeah, for the longest time, I really did think that this was a movie within a movie. And then the more I got into movies and learning about the productions of things, it broke my heart a little bit to find out that this wasn't an actual movie that I could potentially go watch.
I like that he gets scared.
Yeah.
That it was a good idea to not let him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's important to recognize that he is a kid and he shouldn't be doing some of this stuff. Yeah.
And we get back to him and his mom and dad on the plane talking about how crazy it was that they left the house. This is a good conversation between two adults about making sure you covered all your bases. And I like that she's asking him questions and John Hurd's like, did you turn off the coffee? No, I did. Like they're going back and forth with that stuff, but he even settles. It's like, oh, I forgot to close the garage, and yes, he did because Kevin goes to the garage and sees that it was left open. Finally, her motherly instinct kicks in, and she knows something's wrong.
Yeah,
Kevin.
Yeah.
I can only imagine being on a plane over the Atlantic and realizing you left your kid at home.
Right.
In 1990, where you can't get a hold of him, the phone line's out because of the storm the night before. So, I mean, I would be freaking out. I'd be freaking out.
Yeah, it's another good cut too when she screams Kevin, and then it cuts to Kevin in the house. And I wanted to have everybody I want to take a vote here. I want to take a vote on how many of us think that Jason tried the whole sled down the stairs thing. Because there's always something that Jason tried to do in a movie. And because he's not here, I kind of wanted to keep the spirit of it alive. Even though I know the answer because we did talk about sleds in the National Lampoon Christmas Vacation episode. But as soon as this scene came on, it made me... how we've been doing this show and all the things that we love about these movies we've been talking about. And every time Jason has something that he has done... As soon as this scene came on, I was like, that would be the scene. That would be what Jason did in this movie if he did anything. I could be wrong.
That or the zip line.
Yeah. I was going to say zip line.
The homemade zip line might be.
Just because of the climate that I know that Jason has grown up in. I mean, maybe like a cardboard box down the stairs.
Yeah.
With no
My
planned...
kids did that at our house.
Yeah,
definitely. My kids would slide down the stairs just on their body, just like straight plank and just slide down.
We know he didn't do that because of the climate he grew up in. So I kind of want to keep a theme throughout this one because knowing Jason the way I do, I'm willing to bet he tried to do something that happens in this movie.
Yeah.
We'll get to what all the other things are once we get to the climax of the movie, but I kind of want to reference that as we're going through. Do you think Jason tried this or do you think he tried that? So we cut back to Joe Pesci with his buddy Marv in this van, scoping out the neighborhood. For some reason, I didn't think Joe Pesci in the cop outfit at the beginning was the same character. And
a lot of people forget that about this movie.
Yeah. And it's very smart the way they play that. I kind of wonder where he got a real police uniform because it looks exactly like the uniform that the cop has when he comes to check on Kevin.
Well, my guess is that he murdered a police officer and stole his clothing.
Well, I mean, they're willing to do some heinous shit to a child, so that wouldn't that wouldn't be out of the equation, if you ask me.
He bit his fingers off.
Right. And he's going to shoot him in the second one. As dumb as they are, being the wet bandits, at least Joe Pesci's character, Harry, is smart about it and has thought out what his
he's got a
plan is.
Harry isn't really that stupid. Watching it this time, with a critical eye, and I mean, he's pretty. He does some dumb things, but like he's really done his homework on casing out these houses.
Yeah.
He knows exactly when all their lights are going to go on.
Down to
all
the
that stuff.
second.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
like-
and a lot of, and he sees through a lot of Kevin's lies as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, times where he's like, no, this doesn't feel right. Like, he's got some decent intuition.
Yeah.
Which is nice that they're not so totally bumbling stupid.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I like that you
Marv
have,
is, but
yeah, I like that you have Marv there to counterbalance that. And, you know, they have pinpointed Kevin's family's house because it's the silver tuna. It's the one they got everything. That's where they want the majority of their stuff. And they try to go get in, and Kevin's falling asleep on the couch or whatever, and he hears somebody rumbling around. So this tricks them into thinking that, oh, maybe they didn't leave town.
Mm-hmm. Turns all the lights on.
Yeah.
and
But
this is where Kevin should have called the police.
Right.
Or,
Well,
actually, his phone doesn't work.
Right.
So he should have gone to the police the next day.
There are issues I have with the phone not working throughout this movie. We'll get to them in a little bit, but
Well, he seems to want to keep his situation a secret.
yeah, I think he thinks
Which
that
is
he's
one
got,
of the things that I take issue with, because, I mean, maybe he thinks he's wished his family away, and if anyone finds out, he'll go to an orphanage or something. Maybe that's what he's thinking. But all the way to the very end of this movie, he hides the fact. All the way to even after the end where the cops come, he doesn't even call the cops to his house. He calls the cops to the neighbor's house.
Right.
And then I'm getting ahead of us, but he cleans up everything before his parents get home. I don't understand why he keeps all this a secret. Why is the break-in a secret? Why is any of this a secret? I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's the child intuition of, if anybody finds out about this, I'm not going to be able to do it anymore.
Yeah.
He likes being on his own. We'll talk about that a little bit more when he goes to the grocery store. But this is enough to freak Kevin out. He's scared to death. He goes and hides under his mom and dad's bed.
It would be scary.
Yeah. And we cut back to the family finally getting to France, which that was a pretty quick flight, if you ask me. I've never flown to France, but I would imagine it would take a little longer than that.
It's like 14 hours or something. I don't know.
Well, I guess if you think he hasn't been there a full day by himself.
It's still the same day.
Yeah. But I like when they get to the airport and she just snatches the phone away from the lady at the payphones, and she's talking French. She doesn't care. She's just like, oh, and then the guy on the phone is talking French. Oh, she'll have to call you back.
Yeah.
It's a good little performance from Catherine O'Hare here.
She's so great in this, and she really, I mean, she has to sell that she's a good mom, that she really cares about the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't have the right performance for the mom is crucial here, I think.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody didn't play it quite right, you could feel, you could turn on the mom.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But she remains, very likable through this whole thing, and really.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't miss Kevin when they're with the mom. I like that.
Yeah,
I don't care for the rest of the family so much.
Right. Like when they cut to the family in France, that whole exchange there is where the movie kind of dies down a little bit. But I want to play this next scene because it is a scene that makes me laugh hysterically every single time I see it, and it's good audio. So let's play this.
Is it from this movie?
Yeah.
Oh.
This is ridiculous. Only a wimp would be hiding under a bed. And I can't be a wimp. I'm the man of the house.
Under that bed is so clean, by the way.
Yeah.
Their whole house is clean. Even Buzz's room is clean,
Yeah.
which is weird.
They probably have a cleaning lady.
Said I'm not afraid anymore.
But this is where we get our second
I'm not afraid
glimpse of old man Marley.
I love when he runs up the stairs and then screams into the camera.
Yeah.
When he runs up the stairs.
The screaming in this movie is so good.
His scream is so genuine right there, and it makes me laugh so hard. every single time.
He has lots of great screams, and for all his great screams, they're not the greatest scream in this movie.
Nope.
But that one is like, I love how the movie builds up to where we get to. And that's kind of where we come back to the slapstick aspect of this. Is if it would have been this way throughout the whole thing, I don't think this movie would be as well regarded as it is. If we were just going balls to the wall like we are at the end of this movie, the whole movie, it wouldn't have been as genuine, in my opinion.
And it's not that long. I kind of remembered it being longer.
Yeah.
But watching it this time, like the final break-in scene where he's defending the house is not super long.
No, it actually goes by quite quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he only hits him with a handful of stuff. I was kind of, I don't know. I just, in my memory, it's longer, but it's really not that long.
Right. And we finally get someone to get through to the police, and these police are horrible.
Yeah.
Just like every movie we watch. Every movie we watch from the 80s is like, the cops are worthless.
They're just wrapping presents and eating donuts and drinking coffee on Christmas Eve, and like nothing.
The switching to the family crisis guy.
Yeah.
The family crisis is kind of upsettingly accurate.
Yeah.
That, like, you know, a nuanced situation is difficult. You either get, you know, A or B, you
Right.
know, and the guy's thinking, oh, well, if you don't have all these insane scenarios, poisoning, all these things, then, you know, we can't really help you, you know?
I like when they switch to him and he's eating the donut and a piece of it falls on the receiver of the phone, and it continues to sit there throughout the scene. Like he never like takes it off or even acknowledges it. And eventually it just falls off of the phone. It adds a bit of comedy that I don't think was, I can almost guarantee you was not written into the script anywhere. It's just something that happened on camera and they decided to keep it. But it makes that scene so much funnier.
Moment, yeah. And that's Larry Hankin, the guy we've talked about before.
Yeah, we saw him in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. But it would help if the cops identified themselves when they went to check
they
on
don't
Kevin.
say police.
Exactly. They just bang on the door and walk away. And obviously, if there's a kid in there who's 8 years old,
and even the cops,
maybe he won't answer the door. Like maybe you need to go look in, or maybe.
Even the cops' sarcastic response: "Tell him to count their kids again." You know, it's like, you think I'd be going through all of this if I wasn't sure my kid is at home alone?
I assure you, we've counted the kids.
Yeah,
thoroughly.
Well, she also doesn't say that her son is 8 years old.
Right.
When she's talking to the cop, she just says, "My son."
Yeah,
that's true. It's a, you know, we can't get into the muck and mire of a long conversation, you know, at the police station. It's we got 30 seconds for this scene, so let's just set it up here. We called the cops, didn't work. Move on.
So we get to the next day and he's waking up, and this scene with him talking to himself in the mirror is another genius spot with Macaulay Culkin. I like what he's talking to himself about, and how he tried this different kind of body wash or something, and he put it in his belly button.
Yeah, he cleaned his belly button,
which I never tried before, but sort of enjoyed.
So he's never cleaned his belly button willingly.
Probably not.
Yeah, just gross.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's 8. He's probably only been showering by himself for a couple years.
Yeah,
a few years. Maybe before that it was a bubble bath.
And we get the famous, you know, iconic scene of him putting the brute on his face and screaming into the mirror.
Yeah, the aftershave.
Always confused me as a kid. I didn't get it, and even as an adult, like when I put aftershave on, it doesn't burn. I'm not sure why that was such a iconic scene in this movie.
It really only burns if you shave first, but he didn't shave, so I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe it would burn. Maybe it burned more in 1990. Yeah, maybe it was stronger back then.
But I love all the antics of him on his own. He's obviously resourceful because he knows Buzz has money tucked away. He climbs the shelves and destroys Buzz's room to get to it.
I love that scene where the shelves break and he falls through all the shelves.
Yes. How they all in the same spot, straight down. And even how the shelves fall on Kevin, and then there's one covering his head, like the side of his head. And then when he pulls his head out and he goes, "Whoa."
Well, he does that after the sled too.
Yeah.
It's kind of little thing he does.
Which plays a little bit into the slapstick side of this. during his conversation to himself, he figured out that he needed a new toothbrush. He couldn't find his toothbrush, probably because it's in his bag
Suitcase.
that somebody packed and took to France. And
yeah, he's trying to be an adult here. He's the man of the house. So he's trying to act like a man with the aftershave. He wants to go shopping like an adult does. Yeah, do laundry.
I could never fathom why he was interested in wanting to know if the toothbrush was approved by the American Dental Association.
It's probably something he saw on TV.
Yeah.
Or his mom said it one time or something.
And, we get another exchange with old man Marley here, which kind of plays into the creepiness a little bit when he slams his hand down and you see the cut, his hands wrapped up in a bandage. When you first walk...
I remember being a kid and being afraid of him.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the reveal that he was a nice old man as a kid. Like that,
yeah.
I was I was sucked into the fact that he was a scary neighbor, and then when I was like, I remember being relieved as a viewer, like as a kid, being like, "Oh, he's a nice old man. He's a grandpa."
It just goes to show you how they really thought through a kid's frame of mind in this movie, because I remember when I was little at my Nana's house, me and my cousin would go take walks around the block and we would pretend that we were in the Wizard of Oz. And we had picnic baskets and everything and a little dog, stuffed dog that we would take. So that was Toto. And there was one house around the block that we said was the Wicked Witch's house. I don't know why. We never saw anybody who lived there, but that was the Wicked Witch's house.
Oh, it's like Neibolt Street house.
Yeah, and I thought that until I finally got some common sense.
Yeah.
A couple of years later or whatever. But yeah.
I remember that too. I remember being a kid and playing in the neighborhood, and there was just like a creepy looking house. Or I remember my cousin's neighborhood. There was a house, and the old lady would always be on the porch, but you couldn't tell through the screen, if she was out there or not. But if you walked by, and if there were no sidewalks in this neighborhood, so you'd walk on the edge of the road, and she literally, unironically would say, "Get off my lawn." Right? And it would scare the shit out of us. So you're like, "Get off my lawn!" And it was like, she's behind dirty screen, you can't even see her, and she's like, But yeah, that's totally a thing. The scary old person. Old people are scary until they're your grandma or your grandpa, and then they're all
well, they even play into the scary things. I mean, Kevin seems to be more scared about things in his house than he is in the big outside world. He has no problem going out and going to the store and going grocery shopping and all of that, but he's scared to death of the furnace in the basement of his house.
Right.
Which is a real thing for a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but things that are actually dangerous for him, he doesn't fully understand.
Yeah.
He's a child.
He's
afraid of irrational things, like a neighbor who looks kind of creepy, and then a furnace that makes bangs and makes noise.
He's even scared of the attic. It's scary up there. Shit, that attic was awesome. I would have been sleeping up there all the time.
It was not scary. It was not scary. It was fully developed in there. It's not like it was some cobweb.
Yeah.
Covered place.
Again, the 80s, and here we are, early 90s. Rooms in the basement or rooms in the attic, just kind of throwing that at us as kids is like that was the norm. I don't know anybody who had a room in their
because everyone had a big, beautiful 2-story house with a banister and
right.
Every freaking movie, everyone had that. I mean, us Florida folk didn't have so much of that.
Right.
I mean,
no basements.
No basements. Our attics are where we just stick boxes, and there's a lot of, so yeah.
So we move on to Marv and Harry. We see them not casing a house, actually doing their deeds and stealing some stuff from across the street from Kevin's house. Joe Pesci has one of the really good lines in this. "You're one of the best cat burglars of the world, Marv. You think you could keep it down a little in there?" But Marv is extra cruel with this whole Wet Bandits thing, because not only are they just trashing people's houses, stealing their things, they are completely fucking these people's houses up.
Yeah, they're flooding them.
And they almost don't seem like that harsh of criminals. Like, cat burglar is one thing, but completely destroying somebody's house is just a step.
Even Harry thinks it's too much. I mean, not enough to stop him, but Yeah, it is unnecessarily cruel and really stupid, as you learn later that, of course, you can be tied to every crime that you commit. So, you're putting, your signature on everything. But Marv wants to be famous. He wants to be infamous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And Kevin's walking back from his exchange where he now believes he's a criminal for stealing a toothbrush because old man Marley scared him out of the store. And here's another great scene where we get a good scream, which again is not the best scream in this movie. But I like how they're coasting down the driveway arguing, and Kevin's right there. And as close as that van comes to Kevin's face, and he just screams. Another one that cracks me up every time.
It's very cartoony. It's really fun.
And apparently they filmed that in reverse.
That's what I was going to say. I think they shot it backwards.
Yeah, they shot it backwards, but it looks great. It doesn't look like it was shot backwards at all.
No, I mean the way it looks like they come this close to hitting Kevin right in the face with the grill of that van.
Yeah,
but
it looks great and it is funny.
Yeah,
they yell at him to watch out for traffic. Now, Kevin is on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And they're coming out of a driveway. I'm pretty sure Kevin has the right of way as a pedestrian.
Santee doesn't visit the funeral homes, little buddy.
Yeah. Kevin needs a better poker face.
Yeah.
Because he recognizes Harry.
And this is another instance when Harry's intuition helps him. Where he goes, something's not right. That kid looked at me funny. Like Marv would have never noticed that.
And Kevin's one of the only ones who notices a detail about the cop in the beginning, that he has a gold tooth. Mm-hmm. And that's he makes it from there. This is the guy that was in my house. It's really smart how he runs across the church and hides in the manger scene. Mm-hmm. I always thought that was so cool.
Yeah,
as
I love
a kid.
that part.
Because it's like, I don't know if I ever would have thought to like just drape something over myself and blend into the surroundings.
Yeah.
But that just, again, it shows how resourceful Kevin is about things. For an 8-year-old, like, again, the whole aspect of him being afraid to pack his suitcase is going to come back again and again for me, because he does things that I probably never would have did as an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty clever, little guy. Yeah. But, he's put in a scenario where he has to, where he's up to this point, he really hasn't.
Yeah, and so much so that he knows that these guys, I mean, he's already put together that they're the ones who are snooping around the house, and he's experienced them again in his neighborhood. Now, like, he goes home, when these guys come back, I'll be ready. And he sets up all this stuff to make it look like there's people in the house. Again, as a kid, I was like blown away that this kid had the intuition to come home and do what he did. Now, the likelihood of all this stuff working the way it works is impossible.
It's quite an elaborate ruse.
But I always loved that he had the Michael Jordan standee on the train, the other one, the mannequin on the turntable going around in circles. I'm not sure what all his dancing with the ropes was supposed to do, because
I think it moves the two other mannequins who are
at
the
they're
window.
like puppets. Yeah.
But why does his family have so many mannequins?
Well, we don't find out their profession or anything. Maybe his mom is a stylist or a fashion person or something. I think this is where we go to where they're at in France, and everybody is just sitting around the brother-in-law's house. Frank is showing that he's a jerk off because he's handing out hors d'oeuvres that aren't meant for right now. I do like the conversation between the sister and Buzz here, though, because the sister is genuinely worried, and Buzz is just like, the kid could use a few days in the real world, One thing that always stood out to me about this scene, though, is when Buzz is talking about, she says, "You're not at all worried about Kevin." He says, "No, for 3 reasons. A, I'm not that lucky. 2, we have smoke detectors. And D, we live on the most boring street in the United States of America." Again, watching a classic Christmas movie within a Christmas movie.
Yep.
A Wonderful
It's
Life.
almost like at this point you have to have a classic Christmas movie in your Christmas movie for it to be a Christmas movie.
No, you have to have It's a Wonderful Life in your Christmas movie.
I do wonder how many movies It's a Wonderful Life is in.
Yeah.
I thought
it's got to be in more movies than any other movie.
So this is the infamous pizza delivery scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I have problems with this.
Okay.
First thing, If the phones don't work, how did he order a pizza?
Oh.
They're fixed now.
If the phones are fixed now, why aren't the parents calling the phone multiple times?
Maybe they are, and he's not answering it because he doesn't want to be found out.
That is the most likely excuse.
Maybe he ordered the pizza from the payphone after going to the store.
Not online.
By the church. He just ordered online, man.
They don't have DoorDash in 1990.
Right. That's one thing that bothers me about this scene. I like that he says bring it to the back door, all that good stuff, but he's gotten so good with what, this Angels with Filthy Souls movie. This kid's a Jedi with a remote control.
Yeah.
Because
he's
know
jumping all over the place.
I know all of us on this podcast have tried like queuing something up with a VCR and like trying to like hit something like that. No fucking way. Like,
and that gets worse in the second movie.
Absolutely, it does
with the recorder.
Now,
because he just jumps to perfectly exactly where he needs to be.
Right.
He doesn't even have a visual aid of the video to look at.
And there are two scenes. There are two scenes in this movie that they repeat. One is this one. They do this here, and then they do it again with Harry and Marv, or Marv. Mm-hmm. This was the one that I have more of a problem with because of such precise timing with the remote control. It's just so impossible that he could have gotten all that right.
Yeah, he kind of just lets it play with Marv.
Yeah, with Marv, he just kind of cues it, and Marv thinks there's someone in the house arguing. That works.
Also, the lack of fireworks the first time through, because just hearing gunshots on a television isn't going to sell it.
Right. We can't take away from the comedy of it. It makes for good comedy.
It is funny.
But don't you think that pizza delivery guy would have gone back to work and been like, dude, they were shooting at me. Oh my God.
Yeah, like,
I'm never going back there again.
Yeah, why weren't police dispatched to this house because he heard gunshots? Yep. There's just a lot about it. I mean, of course it's played for the comedy, but watching it as an adult, a lot of it makes no good sense whatsoever now. I want to bring this up too, because the next day, I mean, he's got his whole cheese pizza just for himself, but we cut to the next day and we have another scene in the bathroom, and he's doing the classic scene with the boop, 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 be-doo, be-doo, be-doo.
That's a great scene.
I love the soundtrack of this movie.
The thing about this scene is they do the hands on the face with the aftershave again. Why did they have to do this twice in the movie? Like, what about it? Like, it would have worked fine in this scene with the way they cut it with the spider. Like, it's almost horror movie-ish. I think we would have been fine in the scene where he does it the first time if they would have cut it out of that one.
It's the thing of the movie. And they're just milking it.
I mean, that is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
That you walk out of this movie, it was the put my hands on my face and scream.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Like, I don't know why that's more special than other things that happen in this movie. Because there's other stuff that happens in this movie that is way more iconic to me.
It's just what
it
was.
Yeah,
that was the
we're
marketing
just 30 years
for the
removed
movie.
from it.
And
That was the thing.
Now,
and they went to that well twice, and people ate that shit up, man.
And
ate it up.
Again, I don't want to get too deep into the sequel.
Easy laugh.
I don't want to get too deep into the sequel, but I was thinking about it today, and they don't go to that gag in that movie. We haven't watched it in a little while. I'd like to go back and watch it again, but for the life of me, I cannot remember them doing that gag in that movie. It's almost like they just abandoned it in this one.
Well, I mean, they take so much and reuse so much from this movie in the second movie.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, gosh.
And that's why, like, at the time, it would have been like, how are you going to do this again? You're going to do the same stuff, and how do you amp that? But yeah, I mean, it's iconic, and I don't really understand too much of why. I guess I get it for the time, but watching it now, it's like, that's not what I know this movie for. And I don't think we had to go to the well twice for it in this movie. I think the first scene where he's talking to himself in the mirror is strong enough on its own without having to end it with that. And then you could have done it with this scene where it kind of plays a little more natural.
That could have been one scene too. You could kind of combine the two into one scene.
I mean, hell, they could have tested audiences with just one and then added another one in at the end. I don't know how it would have went in that regard, but I feel like they go to that well one too many times in the movie. It's funny one time, twice is like, you know.
Yeah, I think some of the screaming at the camera stuff is a little overdone in this. That's where it feels kind of like a kid's movie. sometimes he screams at the camera, and I love it.
Yeah.
But it does happen a few extra times. The head shake after falling, like some of that stuff gets a little in the goofy zone for me. And there's another thing we'll get to that is a little in the goofy zone that I don't love. But
he's getting ready to go to the grocery store, and as he's checking out with all of his items, maybe I'm alone in this, but I feel like the clerk is completely out of line asking him these questions.
I do not think she's out of line.
I don't either. No, I think they're completely reasonable questions that every adult he has an interaction with should be asking him.
Yeah, because
she's the only person that actually goes, "Where are your parents?
Yeah,
Where's your mom? Where's
an 8-year-old who's alone.
Yeah.
But he's so sly to play it off the way he does. I like the way he closes the conversation.
Yeah. I can't tell you because you're a stranger. Is a great.
And there's a lot that negates itself in that conversation too, because she checks. She rings up the army men, and he says, "For the kids." And then she goes, "How about your brothers and your sisters?" She goes, "I'm an only child." But I don't know. Something about it to me is he's there. She's talking to him. She's having a normal conversation. He doesn't seem like he's in any kind of a distraught situation. I don't know. I felt like she might have been prying a little too hard.
Nope.
Okay.
You're just a really private guy, man.
I guess.
I would argue she didn't pry hard enough because he is still allowed to leave the store all by himself.
Right, and she should have double bagged those things because
yeah.
I love when the bags break and he just stands there. That's a great
case in point. Delivery. Like that is a better gag than the aftershave thing to me.
But this is all him learning what it's like to be an adult.
Yeah.
You have to take care of all these things. You have to do the laundry. You have to clean up. You have to. Sometimes your grocery bags break. Like you've had a rough day. Maybe that's why you don't want to be do everything that your kid asks you to every second. You know what I mean? Well, he gets a taste of responsibility here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I want to get into some Almost Famous.
Almost Famous.
I know that.
Yeah.
Dude.
I know that dude.
Haven't you ever heard of that guy? What's his name?
That guy who was in that movie that was out last year.
Woo! All right, I got Robert Blossom, who is Old Man Marley. You would have seen him in Christine and stuff before that, like Escape from Alcatraz and his Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Good one. Good one.
I know him from this and Christine more than anything, so whenever I see him on screen in this and he's got that like scowl on his face, I kind of want him, like when he approaches Kevin in the church, I almost want him to walk up to Kevin and go, "Shitter."
That would be a different movie.
It would be a very different movie. I wrote down John Hurd because
totally.
While you know him from all these movies, like I feel like
you asked me, you show me that photo and tell me to name the actor.
Yeah.
No way. I would say I've seen a million movies with that guy in it.
Yep.
He's the guy.
If I were gonna, if I knew him from something, it would have been this. And what do you think the other movie would be?
I have to look at his IMDb. It's cheating, but there's
I'm
definitely
looking at your
something.
notes.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff.
Oh, Big.
Yeah, Big.
Yeah.
What is so special about Baskin? Like that part of Big always sticks with me.
I also want to call out Bill Irwin, the old man in the airport.
Yeah, we've mentioned him on the show already one time. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yep.
All right.
I want to point out the curly-haired girl in this group of children. She's not his sister. She's one of the other cousins or
something.
One
of the cousins? Okay.
Yeah, she's got the long, dark, curly hair.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've seen her in like a million things. She's always just some like side person who's in something. And so I remember her most. She was also on My So-Called Life. She fell in love with Ricky, who was gay. So like that was not going to work out. But she's one of those that I always saw.
Yeah.
Nice. I've got one more. Michael C. Morona, the redheaded kid from Pete and Pete.
Yeah.
I would go, I mean, if we're talking Almost Famous here, I'd go Robert Blossom or John Hurd. John Hurd was probably more of the, like, you'd put him above somebody else, I think.
What's the guy that we said we should name this after? Because those two are very similar career wise.
Well, there's we've joked around with like the Clint Howard Award. Clint Howard is your prime guy. We talked about was it Harry Dean Stanton in one episode?
Yeah, John Hurd's my man on this one.
Yeah,
that dude's worked so much, and he just always stays a little under the radar. Yeah. But he's good.
Unfortunately, not with us anymore.
Yeah.
Oh no. Shit.
No.
I also wrote down Larry Hankin, which we talked about from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. The cop with the donut on the phone. Seen him in a few things. So. But we'll move along into finally she's the mom has gotten to another airport in Scranton. Or we've already missed.
She's gone several places.
Yeah.
She bartered her way out of France
with the old man that Eric brought up.
Yeah, with $500, 2 first-class tickets, earrings,
Do you think
a ring,
they still took all that
pocket
from her?
translator, a fake Rolex.
Yeah. Do you think they still accepted all that on the trade?
I've always wondered that myself.
I feel like
mother to a mother.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, give me your wedding ring. Give me your wedding ring off your hand. That's low. I mean,
I feel like those old folks were crafty.
Plenty comfortable. That old lady wanted that shit so bad.
I could also throw her into Almost Famous. I didn't look up her name, but she was in a few of the Police Academy movies, and I knew her from those. And she's pretty funny in the Police Academy movies. I'd love to talk about some of those on the show at some time. But she's gone from one place to, she bartered her way there to Scranton. Now she's in Scranton, and we get the lovable John Candy again.
Oh, he's so good
Sweeping in to save the day.
They missed an opportunity to make him the same character from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles here.
I don't know.
I love the polka aspect of it. It's very fun and funny. And the exchange between he and her, where he's a little pretentious in thinking that his polka band is more than what it is, and she has no idea who he is. But I love that she humors him, and then eventually she's like, "I'm sorry, did you say you could help me?"
Yeah.
Apparently, he improvised all of his lines for the most part.
I'm finding that more and more common with John Candy, and a lot of comedians feel the need to improvise.
I mean, I guess Columbus and John Hughes are known for that. I mean, of course, Hughes does that in the Breakfast Club quite a bit. Just lets him go and see what happens, which is interesting. I mean, his all of his stuff about the names of his songs, that he lists off. I mean, is he just firing these off? Like, what a genius.
And even when you cut to them driving in this truck, which is, again, very unlikely that they would be playing music driving in the back of a big truck like this. But when you cut to them playing their polka music, and he's even trying to get her to play the clarinet, again, presumptive thinking like, oh, here, just try playing the clarinet. Like it's that freaking easy.
I love when he's like, no, okay.
Yeah. Well, she has to put that stern look on her face like, no. And it's a great thing. I mean, I love that it's here in this movie, and it gives us a couple of really funny moments and a couple of really heartfelt moments later. So
when he talks about leaving his kid at the funeral parlor, all day, and his kid hangs out with a corpse. I mean, my God,
like honestly, a little worse of a situation, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely worse.
So I think that might also put Catherine O'Hare's character in this position of, well, maybe things could be worse.
Yeah, if she only knew that 2 men nearly killed her son that night. That's worse than a corpse.
Yeah. So this is where we see that Marv and Harry are scoping out the house because they got to know what's going on. They got confirmation that they're in Paris from hearing a phone call that they were in that their neighbors got when they were robbing their house. Mm-hmm. So they go back, and Marv goes to the door to see if he can figure out what's going on, and we get our second callback with Angels with Filthy Souls, which works a little bit better. I kind of like that Marv just kind of sits there and listens to what's going on. And yeah, you mentioned the firecrackers earlier. Like, it's another added level of this that makes it a little more believable.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you wouldn't expect firecrackers on the other side of that door.
Right.
All that together, you could buy somebody would think that there's actually a gun going on.
Right. And when he gets back to the van and he starts explaining to Harry that someone was in there and got blown away and they're stuck on the name Snakes. I don't know why it's so funny that they keep going back. But
I think it's they've seen the movie and they just like it sounds familiar, but they can't figure out why. You know what I mean? Snakes. I feel like I've heard that before, but yeah, that is funny.
They decide that they're going to sit and wait and see if anybody comes out of the house, because if they do get picked up for robbing these houses and they talk about a murder in the area, that there's going to need to be some witnesses.
Yeah.
And that's when they finally hung around long enough to see that Kevin is the one that's been doing all this. He goes out to cut down the top of a tree so he can have a Christmas tree to decorate on New Year's Eve, which again,
Christmassy,
very
Clark
smart.
Griswold style.
Yeah. And Joe Pesci's great here. And I think we've been scammed by a kindergarten. But they figure all this out. They look in the window. He's decorating the tree, and Joe Pesci's like, "We're coming back 9:00, doing it." And Kevin overhears all of this. I honestly don't think Kevin had enough time to do all the things in this house.
No way.
That he sets up for these guys in the time they give
what
him.
time is it when they say that? We don't know.
We're assuming
what if that was 8 a.m.? I mean, he had all day to paint.
We've already had the exchange with the...
But he hasn't started getting ready until after he goes
to the church. Right.
Oh, which is dark.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Maybe he did some pre-planning stuff.
He had enough time to draw schematics.
He drew the
of what he wanted
schematics
to
beforehand, and then he put it all together.
Yeah,
night.
that was all drawn ahead of time. So he knew what he was going to do. He said, "This will take me about 2 hours. I got to paint the tar on the stairs, it's not that much, really."
The way
the fake party was more work than what he puts in at the end here.
Maybe.
Don't you think?
I don't know.
There's a lot of elaborate stuff in here, because I mean, there's got to be time.
Some of it's not that elaborate.
In this one, you're right. In this one, they do tone it down, because a lot of it is just natural, like frozen steps and things of that nature.
The most complicated thing was probably the blowtorch on the doorknob.
Yeah.
Everything else is pretty basic, pretty simple stuff. But he still has to run the rope to the zip line rope.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to do. I mean,
And I don't want to skip over the church scene with him and Marley, because this is when we finally get the reveal that Marley is not a bad guy, and the dialogue between he and Kevin is very nice and very heartfelt. And again, Macaulay Culkin's chops here are really good. And I love that it's an old man giving advice, and he's taking advice from a young person.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought there was something special about how those two help each other get farther along in their stories.
Definitely, it's sweet, and Kevin gives the old guy a perspective of like, I know I wish my dad would talk to me.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's really the line where the old guy goes,
mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, maybe I can do this.
But
I wonder what his history was. The old guy. He says a lot of people say things about me that aren't true, and then
I like that they throw that in there.
Yeah,
they throw that they've said a lot of things about me, but they're not true. Like, it gives a little bit more mystery to this whole thing. Like, is there
just another victim of the cancel culture?
Yeah,
Old Man Marley was canceled. He made an inappropriate joke at a cookout, and everyone just blackballed him for the rest of the world.
But there's even when Kevin says, "Call your son," and he says, "What if he won't talk to me?" Like, just the concern in Marley's tone in his face as they're talking, like, it's a very good scene, and
it's a good performance by him as well.
Yeah,
the old man.
And even at that point, Jenny also brought up, like, wouldn't he be a little suspicious that this kid's here by himself, and he's always seen this kid by himself?
Mm-hmm.
And we do see later that this comes back into play. Like, he's kind of keeping an eye on Kevin. I think he knows maybe there's a weird situation going on, so that's why he's always in the same place as Kevin in certain spots.
But I have a massive question at the end of this movie. But
okay,
we'll wait for it.
All right,
I guess it kind of ties into this, but
yeah. After this whole exchange, he realizes it's his house. He's got to defend it. So let's set this thing up.
He also has a quick talk with the local Santa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he gets some Tic Tacs. Apparently, Chris Farley auditioned for that role and did not get it for whatever reason.
That would have been a better Almost Famous person to have there. Because I thought about it. I thought about including the guy who plays Santa in Almost Famous, but I can't really place him in much else. I think he's been in a handful of other things, but I don't think he's one of those guys that you would notice a lot.
Yeah. Also, this guy also is not concerned about this kid at night alone talking about how he wishes he had his family back. I mean, there are red flags just flying all over this movie.
You're right.
Yeah, and yeah, that was before the church scene. So we get all this exchange. Like Kevin is at that point where he realizes that it's not such a good thing to not have a family, and he really does need someone there too. Not only does he realize that he can't handle all this alone, but like he misses the love and affection that he does get from his family when he gets it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it builds that relationship with he and his mom and really cements it there. So I like that Kevin has that arc throughout this.
But now we get into the real meat of this movie.
Yeah.
Yes. He doesn't even get a bite of his mac and cheese.
So sad. Because it looks so good. It looks.
He's got a battle on an empty stomach. It does look good.
But yeah, he lays out his schematics. He starts going through the process of setting all this stuff up. Had any of you seen this charcoal lighter that he puts on the doorknob before this movie?
No.
Me neither.
No.
I always wondered what it was, and I don't really know if it would have the effect that it has in this movie if he did that. But again, like a lot of this is played because it's going to be played for laughs. But I always thought that was a weird thing. Like I didn't know what it was or why he had it.
Yeah. It's very cartoony the way all these work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, very Looney Tunes.
Yeah. Well,
I keep mentioning Looney Tunes in these movies that we're watching, but it's unmistakable. I mean, he tars and feathers them.
That's the thing about this movie is these traps seem a little unlikely that he could A, do them in the time he does them, and B, that they would work properly. But there's like most of the stuff he does in this is cemented in a little bit more of a reality than we get in the second movie.
Yeah. A lot of these are very basic.
Yeah.
There's a couple with some rope lines that would need to work with pulleys properly, but most things are very simple, including our first one where he shoots him in the nuts with an air rifle, which is so goddamn funny. When it goes through the dog door and he's just lining it up and then kabam. Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
What? What happened? Get that little.
I love the production aspect of this movie, knowing that Joe Pesci is very foul-mouthed and it was known for all these gangster movies and foul-mouthed roles that he had done, and that's who he is as an actor as well. And it was hard for him to get through this movie. I think it's so smart that they played it the way they played it, where he just does all this under his breath stuff, but it's
where he's Yosemite Sam.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. And talking about Looney Tunes, I mean, he is literally doing a Yosemite Sam impression.
Right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but a BB gun to the face would draw blood. Like,
it depends on what this isn't an air rifle, right? Even though it kind of has an air puff, I think it's a spring-loaded BB gun.
Yeah.
Because he only clicks it once to shoot it, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember, but a spring-loaded, maybe not. You could shoot somebody with a BB, and it might break the skin, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll hurt like a son of a bitch, though.
Right.
Particularly right, point blank in the face.
And the fact that they give you enough, that they give Marv enough time to react to it, like it hits him and he pauses for a second before he reacts to it, makes it that much more funny.
The cells by the burglars, the cells by Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern are hysterical.
They're great.
That's some of the funniest stuff in this movie is them going full Three Stooges and just getting
And I like that when you first get in, like a lot of what's happening to them is happening in tandem. Like they're experiencing the same thing just on different ends of the house. Pesci can't get up the stairs. He keeps falling down. Daniel Stern just goes straight down the attic steps or the basement steps. And I love
the symmetry of them dealing with the steps at the same time, but one's going up and one's going down is so fun.
And I love when Marv falls down the steps and he gets that like the vibrato he gets when he falls down the steps. But
I love that little platform at the bottom that's all ice. So he's trying to stand up and his feet are slipping out to the side.
And he finally just spreads his legs out in a Y. But from the moment all this stuff starts is where, in my remembrance of this movie's first watch, is where it holds so dear to me, is because from the moment he shoots him in the crotch to going down these stairs and all the hijinks that are going on, my dad and my Uncle Ross were laughing so hard. And we were laughing at what was going on, but the fact that it was affecting them to the point that it was just mind-blowing to me. And I almost love this movie more for just giving me that memory of seeing my stepdad laugh as hard as he did watching this movie than just having the movie in general.
That's the magic of movies, man.
Yeah.
It becomes tied into your life sometimes, and you just... The experience of watching the movie becomes the memory as much as the movie is,
And I think
the pace at which they do these is so perfect, where like as soon as you're calming down from one, another one hits you, and it could really get you into a tizzy of just laughing your ass off for about 15 or 20 minutes,
And I like that they play into the little aspects of it too, like just him trying to get up the stairs in the front of the house and holding on to the bar. And then even him getting to the bottom of the basement steps and the crowbar's there. And when he falls, the crowbar falls on his head. Just those little things. And then the comedy of him crowbarring the door. And then all of a sudden he just opens it. It wasn't locked the whole time. And even Jenny was like, he just fucked that door up.
Well, yeah. And kudos to the whatever stunt guys did some of these falls too, because like that second fall that Joe Pesci has to do where he flips over and he like lands on the stairs, like that is brutal.
Right.
Brutal. I don't know how you get up from that one.
But Daniel Stern finally gets in the house and just walking around the basement, creepy basement, the iron to the head and the fact that they do the makeup on him to where it looks like the iron was on. So great. Finally, Joe Pesci gets to the door and burns his hand on the doorknob. And I like that they have the McAllister, the M on the doorknob. So, and that comes back into play in the next movie, which is good.
It always reminded me of Raiders. When the guy burns his hand on the medallion.
Yeah. And one of my favorite aspects of this is Marv going up the stairs.
Yeah.
And I saw
losing a shoe, losing a sock.
Yeah.
Working his way up.
And I saw a thing on Facebook that made me laugh really hard. It was this scene of him going up the stairs. And it was something to the effect of, I've watched so many horror movies in my life, but nothing makes me wince like watching this scene where his foot goes down on that nail.
That's true. That is like a shivering moment where you just go, ugh, like.
Well, coming from someone who's actually stepped on a nail, that shit hurts.
I bet.
Shortly after the hurricane, I was walking around our yard with shoes on, but nonetheless did not see a nail sticking up from a board and went straight through my shoe into my foot. It was not a fun sight. God. But yeah, I mean, and how he grabs his foot and falls down the stairs is classic.
Yep.
And I love even when he goes out of the attic, he slips and falls on the ice again. Or I keep
all of
saying
Daniel
attic.
Stern's, Daniel Stern kind of steals the show here at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, every scene that he's in where he's hurting himself and his reactions and his screams are so funny.
Yeah. And Joe Pesci comes back to the back door, and that's where we get our blowtorch to the head scene. Again, something that would leave third-degree burns on your head, and you probably need to go straight to the hospital, but it's also...
you probably wouldn't sit there and, comically scream while it continued to burn your head. You'd probably move as soon as it shot at you, but...
Right. And but again, the stunt guy, the way they play that in, and the head's on fire and he dives head first into the snow is great. And even when Joe Pesci gets up and he's touching his head and he's like, all that shit. But he kicks the door down. He's like, he's done with this shit. Where are you, you little creep? So I want to get into, you're going to need a bigger quote.
You're going to need a bigger quote.
A lot of the best lines of this movie come in this scene, or in this segment of scenes. You get Joe Pesci in that. I like the "Where are you, little creep?" But then you got Daniel Stern sees that there's an open window by the tree, and Eric brought up that we do top kills in horror movies. Well, do we want to do best trap in Home Alone? So we can get into it as we go through, but I think my favorite one is where we're at here when he goes into the window. Daniel Stern's or Marv's feet get fucked up in this movie.
Yeah.
I feel so bad for him. But he goes in through that window and he thinks he's got it made, and
I'm gonna kill that kid!
The explosion of the ornaments and the lights and stuff cracking or exploding, and his reaction to it is so great.
Those are apparently made out of sugar.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. But it is a really effective, I mean, it looks like he's stepping on, and that's another cringy thing.
Yeah.
Stepping on broken glass. And
Mm-hmm.
and apparently he wore like rubber fake feet.
If you look in certain spots where they're walking around, especially outside when they're on the snow and stuff, you can tell that he's got something on his feet.
Little hobbit feet. He's got hobbit feet on. I guess they did that in Die Hard as well, with Bruce Willis.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. But as that's going on, Joe Pesci's going through the house, or Harry's going through the house and gets tarred and feathered, which is another great one. That's the biggest part of the cleanup of all this that I would be most worried about, is like, how are you going to clean all these damn down feathers?
The feathers.
Well, I've got some quotes.
Yeah.
Should we do those now?
Yeah, we're going to do those now. I do want to go ahead and throw out the taglines here. A family comedy without the family. When Kevin's family left for vacation, they forgot one minor detail. Kevin, but don't worry. He cooks, he cleans, he kicks some butt. That's way too long.
Really long.
It was good after Kevin.
Yeah.
They forgot one thing, Kevin. That's it.
And then this non-family comedy is a real scream. Playing off of the whole screaming while he's putting the aftershave on. So, who's got some quotes?
I've got some. When Joe Pesci's in the house as the cop in the beginning, he says, "All kids, no parents, probably a fancy orphanage." Fuller, go easy on the Pepsi. Say goodnight, Kevin. Good night, Kevin.
Yeah. I pulled...
Say goodnight, Kevin.
Good night, Kevin.
I like the, when I grow up and get married, I'm living alone.
That one's good.
I made my family disappear.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one. If it makes you feel any better, I forgot my glasses.
He's so insensitive. Let's see. I've also got keep the change, you filthy animal.
Yes, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's the one that people quote a lot. One of my favorites is this one.
Marv,
Harry?
why the hell did you take your shoes off?
Why the hell are you dressed like a chick?
I had that one too.
And right after that, Kevin says, "I'm up here, you morons." I always like that one too.
He's got that, and he's got this one.
You guys give up, or you're thirsty for more?
And apparently that was improvised, that line.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
I didn't know that.
And then there's also kind of a sentimental one when he's talking to Marley in the church. He says, "You're never too old to be afraid."
That's good. I like when Marv and Harry are getting ready to go in the house, and they're like, "We'll go around to the back door. We'll knock. Maybe he'll let us in. You'll never know." And Marv goes, "Yeah, he's a kid. Kids are stupid."
I also liked, "Hiya, pal."
Yeah.
You know, and he catches him there.
I also like during the pizza scene when they're talking about how the pizza boy needs money for the pizza. The aunt is like, "Frank, you've got some money, right?" And he goes, "Traveler's checks." Well, the dad says, "You probably got the kind of traveler's checks that don't work in France." But anyway, has anybody got any more? I mean, that's a pretty good handful.
That's it.
No, that's good. I'm good.
But those are all great ones.
Oh, I like when John Candy says, "Well, you brought it up. After he tells that whole story about.
Yeah. I've always kind of had an issue with peripheral vision and stuff like this, because if they were standing where they're standing, they would see blatantly that there are micro machines all over the floor.
Well, they've had some recent head trauma.
Yeah.
And they're really focused on him. I could see them not seeing.
There's a pretty glaring one in the second movie, and we'll talk about that in the second movie. But yeah, I mean, something about that has always sat weird with me. But I love that they come across the sound that they both make as they slip and fall on the floor is great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is the thing that all of these hijinks is most known for, and the most iconic part of all of the House of Terror is the paint cans on the stairwell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It played
another easy thing to set up.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take that long to set up, really.
Now, according to Mythbusters, this would have killed both of them.
Yeah, they're dead.
But this is where, I mean,
wait to the second one when he gets hit with a brick from like
yeah,
also dead. Yeah.
That's where we get into the unrealistic nature of the traps in that one. I mean, there's unrealistic stuff here, but I mean, it's still rooted in more of a reality and makes it a little more fun. They finally get upstairs, and this is where Kevin makes the call to the neighbor's house for the police. Now we know that Kevin knows that the phone works.
Well, first, they catch him.
No. He makes the call and then runs across the hall. That's when they finally get up the stairs and trip over the tripwire. Now,
and this is where he puts the. But you're right. The phone is working at this point, so maybe he did order the pizza.
So
this is where he puts the tarantula on his face.
Yeah, and I've got a clip of this that we're going to play.
Oh, it's so good.
Harry, help me get up! I got
It's the best.
Now, Eric, do you know the behind the scenes of that? Like, Daniel Stern couldn't actually scream when they shot that.
Because of the spider?
He didn't want to frighten the spider, and they didn't want anything like that to happen. So he had to mime the scream, and he had to do the scream in ADR afterwards.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that.
But it matches up so perfectly, and it's like, I think next to the Wilhelm scream, it's like best.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of my notes. This is certainly one of the most legendary screams in film history.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, this is one for all of film history that is just majestic.
You know, Kevin's getting to his zip line now, and then when Marv gets up and goes after this spider with the crowbar, and Joe Pesci has no idea what's going on, I do want to say I like that they cut back to the spider in the movie, and how it works its way around into how it's going to play into the end game of this. But when he's Marv, what are you doing, Harry? Don't. And when he brings that crowbar down on his rib cage and it makes that cracking sound, oh, dude, like they put the perfect sound in there for that, and it makes me shiver every time I see it. But I love that Joe Pesci gets up and just starts baseball batting Marv with the crowbar. How do you like it, huh? And you can hear like the sound effect they put on it is like a piece of like a metal bar hitting somebody. Like it's so great. And then he just throws the crowbar into the room. That's one of the best scenes in this movie. Again, like something that I think is far superior to the whole hands on the face iconic scene that people love in this. But they see that Kevin's gone on, ziplined out to his treehouse. This is where Joe Pesci gets a little stupid because crawling down that zip line was not the best idea.
No, he's overthinking it.
Yeah.
And he has a horrible burn on his hand.
Yeah.
I don't know how he's
he could not
holding on to this thing, but
I think Kevin makes probably his only major mistake in his trap here is he should have just left them dangling. It would have taken them much longer to get to him if he wouldn't have cut the line.
Well, what exactly was Kevin's plan? And that's where some of my questions come
I think it's to run over to the neighbor's house that he gave the police and wait.
What was his end game?
But why would he wait? because he is not with the police at the end. The police don't even know that he's in his house. Like, he's not there. It doesn't seem that he's even there when the police get there. He's at home. And does that mean Marley doesn't know that he's home alone? Because would Marley have left him? Oh, go back home alone where you live.
Well, I want to get into that a little bit.
What happened with all this?
I'm not clear as to what Kevin's end game was. Obviously, he got them out of the house, and that's part of the thing he wanted to do. But I don't understand how going to the neighbor's house, where that was supposed to end, and how
exactly. He knows the cops are going to that house.
Yeah,
he's trying to draw the bad guys to the house. Was he just going to go into the house and then leave the house?
Right.
Hopefully they get caught in there.
Yeah, and hope the cops show up in the time that they're in the house, because he has no traps or anything over there. But this is where Joe Pesci does outsmart him and go through. You know, they know that house is empty. They've been there before.
It gets dark really quick here when they catch him and they're talking about burning with a blowtorch, biting his fingers off.
Well, it got a little heated in the house anymore. Where he talks about ripping off his cojones and boiling them in motor oil. Like,
I mean, at this moment, it's not funny anymore. Like,
no.
Oh shit! Like, they really go all the way with it. They're not like, oh, I'm gonna get you, you little jerk. I'm gonna wring your neck.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm gonna bite your fingers off one by one. Like, shit! Did we just like step into Seven or something?
And comes dangerously close to it as well.
Yeah.
Like, if Old Man Marley wasn't there, Kevin would be missing some fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
At the very least, missing some fingers. Probably dead. But yeah, Old Man Marley comes in and saves the day, and we got to get you home. Now, at this point, if he's delivering a child to their house, just save them from two potential psychopaths. Yep. I think he would be a little more worried than just sending him on his way to his house. He'd be like,
where are your
get
parents?
him back to his parents.
I think we just have to chalk it up to all the adults in this movie are way too lax with wondering why an 8-year-old is by themselves.
I just saved you from getting murdered. The cops are showing up. Does Marley go home too? Does he talk to the police, or does he just leave these two guys knocked out? We don't know. I know we don't know, but the end of this doesn't add up. And then the whole concept of why. I mean, he apparently cleans the house up by the morning. I mean, all this stuff, not obviously Buzz's room, but, we've got broken glass. We've got all kinds of, we've got broken door hinges and things like that. Like, eventually the parents are going to figure this out. I'm trying to remember if the parents ever reference or say anything in the other films about when Kevin thwarted a burglary. Like, are they even do they even find out?
I don't think they know.
I don't think they do.
And why hide it?
Yeah.
I mean, again, once they're home, like, guys, I saved the house.
Yeah.
I saved the house. Why wouldn't Kevin want to tell us?
And they even leave it open with the whole finding the gold tooth because, the paint can knocked Harry's tooth out.
That's another problem I have is stupid Peter. Hey, you just got back. You left your kid at home. You went to France. You just got back. You don't really know what's gone on while you were gone. Imagine finding a gold tooth.
Yeah.
In that house. I would be perplexed finding one in my house.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go, where the hell did this come from?
Well, especially, I mean, it may be gold. It may have value to it, but there's also a tooth there. Like,
that's the weird thing. It's someone's tooth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of kind of loose ends that don't get tied up. And I mean, he didn't clean Buzz's room, as we learned.
Mm-hmm. Which is weird that he would think to clean the whole house except for Buzz's room.
Well, he can't fix those shelves.
Yeah.
They're all broken. But I think there's a lot of things he couldn't fix. You can't clean that tar off the stairs.
No, I mean, even like I said, the feathers for the tar and feathering, like. I can't even, like, it would take all night to clean all those feathers up. Like, you have no idea how far they got into the house.
I think Kevin's got some splaining to do.
For sure.
Another weird thing, though, is we never see Kevin's room.
I wrote that
we
down,
never
too.
do.
He always sleeps in his parents' room. Like, you would even think as an 8-year-old, even though you may have a small bed or a small room or whatever, like that's your space. That's where you're supposed to feel most comfortable in your house. But we never get a glimpse of him in his room.
What
in this
is
movie
weird about it,
or the second movie,
is that it's clearly a decision. Because it's just too weird for it not to be there. Someone decided for some reason.
Yeah. And I even brought that up in the beginning of the movie when they're establishing everyone in the house that he's got to sleep in the attic. Why wouldn't he be sleeping in his own room? But you've also got that with National Lampoon.
Maybe he was displaced by
He's the youngest.
Right.
So, favorite trap. Did we do the favorite trap? We need to do it.
I would say mine's the tree ornaments and how that goes down. How about you guys?
I think just all the slipping on the ice is probably my favorite. It looks so painful. Like to have the air knocked out of you that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Eric, you got anything in particular?
Yeah, I'm gonna go the stairs with the nail in it. Because it's just so brutal, and it's so funny how he loses a shoe, then the other shoe, then a sock, then the other sock.
Yep.
That just does it for me. And you get a good scream there too. You get a good Daniel Stern scream.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
that one's a lot more bassy. The one we get later is a lot more high pitched.
I would have picked the spider, but that's not really a trap. So
right, that's a very luck of the draw in the right place in the right time sort of. And again, like the way that they cut back and forth to the spider and how it plays into the end part of that works perfectly. But yeah, I mean, it's not something he could have ever planned for. If it weren't for the spider being there, he would have been pretty screwed in that moment.
Yep, the spider and Marley both save him. Otherwise, he would be a dead kid.
We've already talked about how John Candy and the mom have the conversation in the truck about leaving the kid in the funeral parlor, and she finally gets home. She didn't want to wait in France this whole time to get home, and she finally gets there, and I like that Kevin kind of plays with her a little bit.
Yeah, he's got a pouty face.
Almost like he's been traumatized by this. And
well, he doesn't turn till she apologizes.
True.
Either. Like I think there is some real conflicted energy there where he's like, you know, what did you do to me? Why did you leave me? You know what I mean? But of course, when they hug, it's so like it gets me every time.
Yeah.
Like that moment when she gets home and his mom's home, and there's just that feeling of like,
yeah. Or even when all the brothers and all the siblings are realizing he survived on his own this whole time.
Yeah.
But even Buzz says, I'm impressed. You didn't burn the place down.
Even when shopping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did laundry.
But I like that they also close out on Kevin walking to the window and watching and seeing that the exchange between he and Marley went somewhere. He did what Kevin advised, called his son, and you get this moment. Like that gets me a little more than the Kevin and his mom moment. Is like, oh, they had a positive effect on one another.
Yeah.
And it's a great little way to close out the scene. And even with Buzz, yelling the closing line of, what did you do to my room?
Go out on a laugh, on a gag. Yeah. Credits roll.
But I mean, this is some scarring childhood trauma that he's been through.
But he doesn't see it that way in his eyes. Like that whole exchange with he and his mom puts it in a reality for him to where it's like, well, I made this decision.
He was left alone, almost murdered. I mean, it's not great. I think maybe he's got issues later in life, is all I'm saying.
I would say I'd love to see the 30 years later version of this, where Kevin is still played by Macaulay Culkin at like now, and they kind of play that whole aspect of how this has affected him throughout his life, and almost like a meta sort of, it affected Macaulay Culkin negatively, and it also affected Kevin negatively. Almost so like this was a preparation for him in that commercial. Yeah.
They did some of that, but you're right. You could do, I mean, gosh, with all these shows and movies that are bringing back old celebrities, and
Like that would be an interesting aspect of something. Like we talk about remakes all the time and how some movies shouldn't be remade or they shouldn't make a sequel. They make these sequels that are 30 years later or 20 years later or whatever they are. But imagine if they did, like if someone actually put forth the effort of writing a script and taking it to a studio and saying, I legit want to take what happened in this movie that is canon and in this universe and take a dark turn with it. If it could stand on its own and not taint the how this movie is regarded in terms of Christmas time, but almost play a dramatic sense instead of a comedy sense and take it in a dark place. Like
it could be like a dramedy or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's like a very dark comedy. Like it's still funny, but what's happening, like even in this movie, there's very dark shit here that's played comedically. Almost like you change the view of it. This time we're playing it dramatic, but it's one of those where it's like it's funny because it's so fucked up.
Yeah, I mean you have to play it in some kind of similar tone if you were really going to make it canon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it has to exist in the same universe.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you're right. I mean, you could lean into that. You could do even something in the same tone with a grown-up Macaulay Culkin, or Kevin. I mean, Macaulay Culkin can still act. I assume he was good in Saved.
Saved.
I do like him in Saved.
Saved is a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Saved is a great movie. I love that movie.
And it is a hidden gem. Like I don't think a lot of people know about that movie. I would love to talk about it.
And Mandy Moore is great in that movie.
Yeah,
she is. Like the whole cast is good in that movie.
Yep.
We'll definitely talk about that one on here. I'd love to talk about that one. But yeah, I mean, the bad part is I kind of hate that Hollywood is in this sort of spot where they would, the path they would go with something like this is they would still have Macaulay Culkin in it as Kevin and whatnot and kind of play this whole aspect, but it would be Kevin leaves his son at home alone. And it's his hijinks with some robbers that try and break in. Instead of, the trauma that Kevin got from all of this as a child and how he's having to deal with it as an adult. But the thing is these movies, this one and the second one, don't even play it like this has affected Kevin at all. Mm-hmm. He's so innocent in everything he's doing in these movies that it wouldn't play well because they've just played it as it didn't affect him as negatively as it probably would have in real life.
Yep.
Yeah, he's just, having fun with it most of the time.
Yeah.
A couple moments of, oh no, I'm in trouble, and then quickly out of it, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's get to the good, bad, and the ugly.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
The good in this for me is the comedy in this is genuine, and I genuinely think that this movie is just funny. And not even for even necessarily the jokes that are played in it. It's in all aspects of it. The scream that Kevin has when he sees old man Marley, the scream that comes through when the spider gets put on Marv's face. Yep. Macaulay Culkin makes this movie, and it's sad that he ended up in a place where this movie is kind of the bane of his existence because he is so good in it. And obviously he's living with it and moving on to things in his life, but I kind of hate that he was put in a position where this movie kind of put him in a dark spot a little bit and caused a lot of problems with his family, even though it's something that we all hold so near and dear to us because it's this fun movie. But
I mean, that's the thing with these kid actors, man. It often ends poorly, or
I mean, he didn't end up the worst. I mean, we could be talking about Edward Furlong.
Yeah, I mean, Macaulay Culkin's fine as far as I know, but he had some issues for a while, but who could blame him? I mean, what a bizarre way to grow up. Mm-hmm. I mean, you see it.
It's like the Michael Jackson syndrome, which is funny because he crosses paths with Michael Jackson later on, but
you're good friends with Michael Jackson.
But I mean, Joe Pesci's great in this. Daniel Stern, all the actors are spot on for this movie, and that's really the good that's really what makes this eve for me. The bad is just the reality of how some of this stuff would really be. Some people in this movie would be dead for sure, but it doesn't taint the movie for me. It's really just me nitpicking and trying to find something negative to talk about in this movie. Frank is terrible. I can't stand Frank. I don't like that the kids are mean to him. Even though he's a little jerk, like I think they're a little overly harsh to him. But that's really all I would say for good and bad and the ugly in this. How about you, Eric?
Good is Marv's scream with the spider. Yeah. Bad is Peter is worthless. Doesn't catch on to the fake cop. Doesn't defend his son. Doesn't help his son. He just stays in France, and doesn't even think twice about the gold tooth. Really, as far as we know, he just it's gold tooth. That's weird. Yeah. So he's an idiot. And then ugly is just all the hiding everything that doesn't make sense to me, with Kevin hiding all that stuff that we got into. Like, and did Marley hide it? Did Marley just go home and not speak to the cop? What the hell happened there? That is actually a criticism that I have, and it bothers me. But the movie is fun. It's classic, and you don't need to dissect everything. I still love it. And Jenny, you go.
Yep. I'm going to say the soundtrack is really good, as well as the score. I love the Christmas songs that they chose for this movie. And, of course, John Williams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we didn't even mention
What
John
else
Williams
can you say? And then the bad, just really the inattentive, almost blasé attitude that all of the adults in this movie, besides his family, have
the cops
towards this child being alone.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't have an ugly.
So buy it, rent it, forget it. What are we saying?
Buy it.
Buy it.
Buy it. You probably don't have to because it's on TV a lot around this time of year, but you should buy it because it is a classic.
Yeah. I mean, it may not be on the AFI Top 100, but it's definitely one you got to have in the collection.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for our conversation of Home Alone. One of my best childhood memories of watching a movie. It's been fun to go back to it and watch it. I mean, we watch it every year. I know Eric wasn't too thrilled about sitting down and watching it this time, but
I feel like I've watched it too recently, so I just wasn't ready to go back to it, but I had fun watching.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the, I was kind of feeling the same way. And as soon as I started watching it, I got into it and I was just like, okay, I'm on board. It's such a fun movie and I have such genuine laughs watching it. So, I just want to throw out there, I was a guest on the Out of the Blank podcast today, and that should be coming up here in the next week or so. Me and Rob on that show just sat down and had a little bit of a conversation. He does a very Joe Rogan style sort of podcast where it's just you and him have a conversation, and he's a very nice guy. We talked about nostalgia, movies, video stores, social media, all kinds of stuff. So check that out once it hits wherever you guys get your podcast. Check him out. Out of the Blank podcast. It was a very fun conversation. And
look forward to it.
So next week we're coming back. The episode will be dropping on New Year's Day, and we'll be talking, in my opinion, the best action movie of all time, Die Hard.
Yes.
We're going to the Nakatomi Plaza.
Nakatomi.
We're going to...
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
We're going to have a lot of Jenny talking about Alan Rickman.
Oh, yeah. He can talk to me anytime.
So you have that to look forward to. Great action movie. I'm sure we'll all have a lot to say. Hopefully Jason will be back with us at that time so he can talk Die Hard. I know he likes Die Hard as well. It should be a fun conversation. And starting into the new year, I think we're going to go a little different as far as choosing our movies. Maybe a little more random than we have been doing. We kind of wanted to start our show with a schedule to get things started and sort of evolve from there. So I think we're going to be doing a little different stuff with our episodes moving into the new year, and you'll know more about that hopefully by next episode. But until then, be kind, rewind, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yes, glad tidings of great joy.
Happy holidays.
And all of that good stuff. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa.
Solstice.
Whatever you do, happy that.
Happy.
Just be happy. Don't worry.
And that'll do it for us.
Keep
With
the
that,
change, you filthy animal.
With that, we will say...
Take it out, Kevin.
Good night, Kevin.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Bye.
It's over.
You've been listening to the VHS Files Podcast.
Watch a few movies, take a few notes.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe and drop us a rating and a review wherever you get your podcast.
It was fun.
Send your questions, comments, and movie suggestions to vhsfilespodcast@gmail.com.
You sick fucks, you've seen one too many movies.
Don't you blame the movies!
Follow us on all social media outlets at VHS Files Podcast.
Movies don't create psychos.
Check out our YouTube channel for more content.
Movies make psychos more creative.
Thanks for listening.